Muhammad Patel wins here.
Look at these two go.
He's going to do it. His first victory.
The World Championship is done.
What a race it's been.
Rest of the season, so the bar is well and truly high. A quick reflection to how it shaped up in Malaysia. It was a good day in the office for the ground effect cars, able to secure a 1-2-3 lockout. Costas Van Vukas at the helm, closely followed by teammates Zalagianis and Jingle, respectfully. A fantastic race and good points in what is going to be a hotly contested season. What's in store for us today then? Well, we travel to Japan and to Matsusaka for the Japanese Grand Prix, a circuit famed for its flow and its excitement last season. It was a pivotal moment in the championship, and I'm sure today will be nothing less. Drivers today are on high alert as the threat of clouds loom over the circuit. Could we see some rain-soaked action here today? I, for one, cannot wait. But before we dive into quali, let's say a massive thank you to our broadcast partners of VCO, as well as returning sponsors of Mesita Esports, SimLabs, and 3D Wraps for supporting and aiding FSR. With that out of the way, my name is Zach Sweeney. I have Edward Hunter alongside me with Cam on Cams today behind the scenes directing the show. Well, Edward, you made your broadcast debut last time out. How excited are you for your second?
Well, they say the first one's the hardest one, so hopefully this will be very straightforward. But the race, I'm sure, will be anything but. Suzuka, incredibly fast, high-speed, punishing circuit. That any little mistake is punished tenfold here, especially through corners like the two Degner turns, spoon curve. You really don't want to be going off in any of those places. And then 130R, which is incredibly fierce, and we've seen some major incidents there over the years. Of course, you mentioned last season, Cosmo Pasquiuto, victorious on that occasion for Royal Blue Racing on his way to runner-up spot in the championship. So certainly a track that the best drivers excel at. And but like you say, ground effect, the team in the ascendancy currently, we see ground effect in full effect very much. So we should expect them to be front runners today as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is round 3 of 10, slightly shorter than last season, which saw 12. All that means, though, is that each round counts for all that little bit more. It's around about 2 weeks between each event. So always looking forward to the next one. But yeah, the first 2 rounds, absolutely fantastic. And today will prove no different. We'll go to quali in just a little bit. Of course, 3 laps maximum, 3 out laps, 3 hot laps, and then 3 in laps in which they can just escape. Cut into that now. We'll have a look at how they rack up. It's Costas Van Vukas at the moment, purple to the first sector and seeing his way towards the hairpin. Bit of a twitch though on the rear end as he goes in. That just proves how difficult that corner is. But Van Vukas, little bit sort of unfortunate in Imola. Got the strategy just a little bit wrong, but made amends for it last time out in Malaysia. And he's going to try and carry that form through today in Japan.
Yeah, and he was in pole, of course, for Malaysia. But decided to go for the harder tyres at the start, and that meant he got swamped. It meant George Zalagianis, who won in Imola and, of course, leading the championship, led the opening phase, but Van Vukas fought back brilliantly. He took the pain once he got the harder tyres out of the way, and on the softs at the end, he was unbeatable as he goes very deep into Casio Triangle, but I guess that's sort of we're going to see a lot of that over the next couple of hours as he goes towards the line. And what time is this going to be? It's actually Lianos who's got the fastest lap at the moment, 1:27.5, only 6 thousandths of a second ahead of Van Vukas' time that he just set there. So Van Vukas coming out the pits, fresh tyres on, he's going to give it another go with a fresh load of fuel in the back. So let's see what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Very close as to be expected in the Academy Championship. And as you rightly say, 0.06 of a second separate them. And of course, every driver on those soft compound tyres, because they have free choice into the race, so they can qualify in whatever they want. They don't have to take these tyres through into the race. So it's absolutely everything on the table. and they're going to give it their absolute everything. On board with Mass in towards 130R. Green to the first and second sector, just trying to put a time on the board. That's incredibly important because you only get 3 laps in this 9-minute session, and you've got to maximize every single one. The first 2 just to bank some time, get a time on the board so you can give it everything into that final one. But on this run to the line, quite short relatively, and he gets himself into P17. 2.7 seconds off the pace. That's not quite where he wants to be, but he's still got 2 laps left to go with 5 minutes left in this session. This is David Brantham, again, another driver who's just trying to put some time on the board, and it is very important, isn't it, Edward, just to have that time on the board. It makes it a little bit more comfortable so you're not going all or nothing on that final lap.
Exactly, and also Suzuka, it's very much a rhythm track. You want to build up to the final phase of the session when the track is going to be at its best, as we see Brantham cutting into Spoon here. You want to be in the right rhythm, in the right zone mentally when the track's at its best, when you can get the best times out of it, of course. And you also crucially want to be running on track, especially at some of the longer circuits. And Suzuka, it's sort of middle, or I think it's like, just under 90 seconds per lap. So you definitely want to make sure you don't get caught out and you're stuck in the garage when the session ends, as we see Brantham go towards the line, goes just into the top 10 on a 1:29.1.
Yeah, decent lap from Brantham in the Valley Esports, and that's the thing, that top 10 is very tightly contested in this championship, as we see Remits across the line. A driver that you would expect to be towards the sharp end, unfortunately only managing P15 on this occasion, but yeah, very fine margins, as we see Hember in the 7 Arrows RM coming through the Casio Triangle and towards the line as well, taking a very wide line. That's not particularly what you want to be doing, but across the line. And is he going to get himself onto the board? No, he's now starting a lap, and again, not the most preferred line in towards turn 1. Having a look at how Lianis and Van Vukas are doing on their second flying laps. Van Vukas white to the first sector. That means he hasn't improved, but everyone around him, everyone else inside the top 5, Edwards, they're up on their time. They're improving. This could be this could mean trouble for Van Vukas.
Not necessarily. It was a 31.8, which was actually Lianos is set at 31.9, which was his personal best. But that was a tenth slower than Van Vukas on a sort of slower time, as you point out, as Silviera gets into the top 9 now, 128.8. So, Valet certainly starting to populate the lower inches of the top 10. We're sort of seeing ground effect with Wesley Bukout, of course, was on pole in Imola and had to miss Malaysia. And it's good to see Wesley back on the ball and looking to make a big impression here. He could be a real factor today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vagapov, he opted to take to the back of the grid at Imola, and of course managed to make his way up, and at the moment is purple to the first sector with a 31.7, about a tenth quicker than those inside the top 5. Slightly slower to the middle sector, but he's still got this final set, a couple of corners to go. Flat out through 130R, down on the anchors for the Casio Triangle. It's all about this exit. You've got to keep the momentum up all around this circuit. It's pretty much, you mess up one corner, you mess up the next 3 or 4, and across the line, what's he going to do? Can he get himself into the top 5? Can he get himself inside the top 3? It's 5th place.
You were exactly right.
28-0. I am exactly right. You know me. And he had all 3 colours as well, purple, white, and green for his lap. But yeah, certainly not bad. But that's the thing. We've got 32 laps in store today. You know, qualifying, as important as it is, it's not going to be the be-all and end-all. You can certainly get some overtakes done here.
Yeah, and like you say, Peter Vagapov pick and mix with his time of his colours there in his quality laps. But yeah, certainly as we look back at Mass, Guillaume Mass for TR Motorsports, of course, who have they've had a lot of driver changes going into this round, especially for their World Championship squad. They've got 2 completely new drivers, had to miss Malaysia, but Mass, I believe, also new to the squad, and he set a better first sector here, but his middle sector, nothing too special. Let's see if he can string it together right at the end as he exits the Casio Triangle and powers towards the line. What's it going to be for Guillaume Mass? Going to be 130.2, so he stays exactly where he is.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, unable to improve. It's Lianis, Van Vukas, and Zalagianis, your top 3 as it stands, but Bukout is only 2 1,000ths of a second behind. He really is on the fringes of that top 3. That's exactly where he wants to be after his stellar pace in Imola. And of course, he's going to try and carry that because it's going to be a very tightly contested championship. Of course, we had a bit of a runaway between Cosmo Prosciutto and Damien Scouron last season, but hopefully this season promises a little bit more. Of course, we're only on to our 3rd round now, but still, you can often see early on who are going to be the ones to contend with. And I think anyone inside our top 5 as it stands really are going to be those main contenders, really are going to be those ones pushing for consistent podiums. But hey, you never know. We might see some surprises. His remit across the line. What can he do? Green to the middle sector. Slight improvement with a 29.6, but unfortunately unable to get himself any higher. And this is Daniel Brandtholm as well. Currently P17. Was inside the top 10 at some point, but he's only 3/10 off and goes into P9. So again, getting himself back inside that top 10, and that's exactly where he's going to be wanting to be and where he's going to be wanting to aim.
Yeah, good last two sectors there from Brandtholm. Really saved the lap and keeps Valet in the picture, of course. He's just ahead of Silviera, who ended up finishing 4th in Malaysia. Had a very quietly impressive run as Zalagianis sets a personal best first sector, 32 flat. So he is trying to push, of course, winner in Imola, championship leader, trying to get back on song with his teammates. 3 temps down at the moment, so plenty of work to do for George Zalagianis. Looks to consolidate his championship lead and get the best possible starting position. Look at the flame spitting out the back of that as he exits Spoon, as it downshifts. So really on the ragged edge here, which is exactly what you need to be at Suzuka, as I was mentioning earlier. Let's see, as he goes towards Sector 2. Oh, it's not quite so good, is it, Zach?
Yeah, no, not the best time. And this is the crucial time. Only 10 seconds left. This is his final lap. It's all or nothing. And he's got the threat from Buildup behind, who has improved on his time. And it's very fine margin. So he needs to maximize this final sector. Just not even to get himself onto the front row. Just to protect himself from behind. Just about manages to do that. Improves to 27.791. But it's going to be all eyes on Wesley Buildup to see if he can get himself into P4. Yeah, indeed. So from Harvick, who's also up. Vagapov, purple to the middle sector. He's got some good sector times in Sector 1 and Sector 2. It's all about hooking it up, though. What can Harvick do? Unfortunately, unable to improve. This is Buildup as he approaches the Sector 2 line. He is green to the middle sector as well. Vagapov into P3, a 10th and a half off Lianis' time, but he certainly is one in the mix now. Buildup pushed down to P5. He needs to try and get himself back onto that second row. What can he do? He's at the moment needs about, half a tenth, 6/100ths of a second across the line. Very, very close. Indeed, gets it and gets himself onto that second row. So very close in qualifying. The top 2 separated by just 6/100ths of a second, and our top 5 separated by just about 2.5 tenths. So really enjoyable qualifying session, and I'm sure it's going to be an even more enjoyable race.
Yeah, and there's Oliver Perukian just finishing his lap and sneaking into the top 6 there. So really, we're seeing our championship leader punished there, because George Zalagianis just really didn't get the lap together and almost got knocked out of the top 5. Perukian just fell a couple of attempts short there. But certainly him messing up. Oh, well, not so much messing up, but not quite getting it together for that final lap really, really cost him, because when the track was at its best, the others improved and he got shoveled back.
It's all about hitting it at the right time where the track has improved. That's why you often see the best times come in towards the end. We'll have a look at how the top 10 rack up then. It is Lianos who takes pole position here for round 3, a 1:27.513. He's joined by his teammate Kostas Vamvukas in second place. Then comes Peter Vagapov and Wesley Buildup 3 and 4, with George Zalagianis rounding off the top 5. Oliver Perukian in P6 with Jingel in P7. He was up there on the podium last time out, down in P7 for this qualifying. Scott Flack P8 with Mjolnir in P9. Then comes David Levies in P10. 1.1 seconds cover our top 10, and here's how they come down from 11th to 20th. It's Matthias Harvick in P11, David Brandtholm in 12th, Silviera in P13 with Fabrice Mistral in 14th. Then comes Dmitry Sarahov rounding off the top 15. Liam Howard in 16th with Thomas Smith in P17. Then comes Ruchik Luchak in P18 with Ruiz Morlato 19th. Then comes Nandor Massa rounding off the top 20, 1.7 seconds, and it's even closer back to Nunez in P21. Then comes the 36 Netrex car of Toyn in P22. Inject Remits in P23 with Dylan Hember in 24th. Then comes Guillaume Mass in P25. Slavanik in P26 with Alex Howes and Sophie Jones rounding off the grid in P27 and P28 respectfully. Certainly cannot wait for this race. Edward, we're going to just cut to a quick word from our sponsors in just a moment. No lap from Mitchie, unfortunately, today for Academy, but we're going to go to a word from our sponsors, and we'll see you in just a little while. Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen, as you join us for the Academy Championship. Not long to go then before we get underway for 32 laps here for round 3. We've just had qualifying, if you are only just joining us. A very, very close top 5 indeed. Edward, certainly one to look forward to, isn't it? You know, Matsusaka, this Japanese circuit, is always one to give us some good action. That run in towards turns 1 and 2, very flowing, but it's going to be one where consistency is rewarded because, as you said in qualifying, very rightly so, it's all about momentum, it's all about flow, and it's all about settling into a rhythm.
Yeah, and absolutely. The other thing is that Zuka is not the most forgiving track if you go off somewhere. If you're going to be in the gravel or possibly in the wall, especially at the 2 Degners, at the hairpin, there's lots of really tricky braking zones, and it's not the easiest place to run side by side either. But there are a few really good overtaking spots, like the Casio Triangle and like the aforementioned hairpin. But interesting story in qualifying there is that it seems very evenly handed between the ground effect drivers, with Lianos, who I thought did very well. He was the only one to really make the hard tyres work in the final stint at Malaysia, holding off Oliver Perukian really well. And he gets pole position now ahead of Van Vukas, of course, who won last time. So it really feels like the ground effect drivers are all taking turns to run at the front. Let's see if Lianos can string it together and take his first victory today, or if Van Vukas and Vagapov can get the drop off on him.
Yeah, we'll certainly have to wait and see how that conspires. And as you say, yeah, strategy is going to be one that's interesting. We're not expecting the hards to take much precedence in this race. Of course, you know, again, you're very demanding on these tyres, a lot of mid to high speed corners around Matsusaka. So you've got to rely a lot on the tyres. And if you're on those hards, you're not going to get much grip out of them. You're not going to be particularly quick. So we're going to expect, soft to medium or even a 2-stop might be the way to go. But we'll have to wait and see. At the moment, the drivers are in warm-up, just a few minutes for them to settle themselves in and get themselves into the race. But the top 5, I'm not entirely sure what tyres they're starting on. I'm sure you can supply me with that information, Edward, but certainly going to be interesting. Is there any variation between them?
Certainly quite a bit of variation. I think some of them are still deciding, because I thought Peter Vagapov was going to go for soft tyres, and he's just switched to medium in the little warm-up that's going on at the moment, so I'm not sure if what I'm seeing necessarily is going to correlate, but it certainly looks like a top 2 are both gone for the soft tyres, that's for sure, and then quite a few behind. Zalgianis going for mediums, as well as Wesley Bukout, so they didn't quite get the laps together at the end to get into the top 3. So they're going to try and make position by staying out a bit longer in the first stint and giving themselves a bit more option in the middle of the race. So we'll have to see if that works. I think probably you're going to want to try and sprint away on the softs, especially if you're at the front, whereas we might see a couple of the mid-pack and the tail enders go for the hard tyres just to sort of see what happens. We saw Dylan Platt try that in Malaysia as well for TR Motorsports, and he just sort of stayed out on the hards and sort of ended up dropping out of the top 20 in the end, I think, actually. So it really didn't work out for him, but it was a sort of gamble because he didn't really have the pace to make it work otherwise. So yeah, you do see people trying different things in Academy, certainly, even with the shorter distance than the other 2 classes.
And when you have that sort of, when you're on that back foot, you've got to go for these gambles. You've got to sort of just say, if it works, I'm going to gain from it. If it doesn't, so what? I wasn't really anywhere anyway. So you've got to try it. You've got to, because if it pays off, you're going to be laughing. You're going to be pretty chuffed with your result, and you might be able to pick up an extra couple of points along the way. But yeah, I'm sure strategy, as we're saying, is going to take a big step forward in this race, and it's going to be crucially important, especially if people are struggling to get through, of course, these high downforce cars. It could be slightly difficult to follow each other just behind, and of course through those S's, through the Degners, through Spoon, places like that. Might be a bit difficult to follow. It might be a bit difficult to manufacture a pass. Of course, it could go either way. It could have some incredible racing, or we could not have much at all, and that's where the race is going to be won or lost in the pit lane, as drivers sort of come in a lap earlier, have the fresher tyres, come out maybe just away from the traffic, get a couple of laps in clean air, then be able to get the undercut, or conversely go for the overcut, go for a 2-stop, anything like that. Anything can happen, and we'll just have to wait and see how it transpires over the course of these 32 laps. And it is a relatively long run in towards turns 1 and 2, and of course, remember, today is round 3 of 10. So we're still very much in the early stages of the season, but every round is that much important. We had 12 rounds last season, Edward. That means, each round counted for a less percent of the total points, but with less rounds, it means you've got to maximize each one just that little bit more.
Yeah, and I suppose from the drivers. They prefer having more rounds because if they have a bad start, then they have a bit more points on offer that they can use to catch back up. But certainly for ground effect, they'll be happy that it's a shorter season because they've done so well so far. And they start the front here, so it could be we could see a continuation, unless Peter Vagapov, of course, made a brilliant recovery in San Marino, actually, from the very back to get up to fourth. Running third today, could he get his first podium of the season? I certainly wouldn't bet against Peter because he's been incredibly impressive over the years, not just in Formula cars, but also in endurance racing. And of course, one thing that comes to my mind is we do have an absentee due to COVID, which is, of course, is Miljan Rakovic, who I think was competing in the first 2 rounds. So let's hope Miljan, who's I think ill with COVID at the moment, let's hope he gets well soon, because a few weeks ago I saw him competing at Formula E in the Dairy Prix for ERC, and he won that one, which was I think one of his first wins actually in rFactor 2. So certainly a very good driver. Let's hope we see him back on the grid soon.
Yeah, hopefully. And interesting that you know about Peter Vagapov, because, yeah, his racecraft and his ability to cut through the field in San Marino was just absolutely incredible. So now he's got this opportunity towards the sharp end of the field. It will be interesting to see how he fares, because that's the ever important thing, isn't it? Being able to race, as you know, it's all good being quick, but if you can't race, you're not really going to get very far. He knows when to pick the right moments, when to go for the moves, when perhaps the strategy isn't going his way. He might need to change things on the fly. And it's all about consistency. You know, all good being quick, but how long can you keep that pace up? And I think Vagapov is going to be one of those people that really showcases that talent and really showcases his ability in order to do that. And as you say, maybe we might be able to see him inside the top 3. And yeah, interesting, you know, about COVID as well, because it's one of those things that unfortunately has stopped a couple of people from competing. Of course, we lost Michi Hoyer last time in Malaysia to him recovering from COVID. Unfortunately, there was a silver lining in it, because we got to see Cameron Roger take the lap guide, which was fantastic to watch, and I hope people did enjoy that. But
I certainly did.
Yeah, it was great. He was, I think it was it. I'm not entirely sure if it was live, but it certainly was on the fly, and yeah, it was live broadcasting. So I hope he does it again, and I hope he does make a mistake on the lap, just to laugh at Cameron. But no, it is, you know, there's always silver linings that come of it, but thankfully Michi is all good, and we wish anyone else that's recovering from COVID well. But yeah, it's unfortunate, but you know, sometimes it does allow people to come in, and does pave the way for some people to show their talent. Of course, like in real world Formula One, when Nico Hulkenberg had to step in, he got P3 in quali, so it does give people that opportunity to shine.
Yeah, and of course we saw David Mroczek fill in for Michi Hoyer in Malaysia in the World Championship, and did a very tidy job, finishing a P7, I believe, in the end, and certainly got up a couple of times in the highlights, and good to see, because Burst have not had an ideal start to the season in the World Championship, so they are the reigning champions. So we'll be hoping with Michi back in the cockpit that they'll be a much stronger force to be reckoned with when we get to that race later on. Of course, you won't be hearing me commentating that until the highlights a few days later. So, but you will get me and Zach commentate on this, so that's all good.
Yeah,
but
unluckily for them.
Oh,
sorry,
yeah,
guys.
I guess. Yeah. Also, talk about COVID. I've actually had a few scares myself, because my parents both tested positive a few days ago, and have sort of been recovering ever since. But thankfully they don't race, so that's not really affected them too much. But that would be interesting to see a Hunter family karting bash to see who would do the best. But certainly probably not around Suzuka. I doubt they'd last too many laps. My brother is the kind of guy who, playing racing games, always had to have. We used to play a game where he always insisted walls be put around every track because he refused to brake for any corner. And anyway, I think we're about to get going. So, Zach, would you like to take us away for the starting order?
Certainly so. If you are only just joining us, this is how they racked up after quali. It was the 2 ground effect cars of Lianis and Van Vukas that are 1 and 2 on the front row. Peter Vagapov in third, with Wesley Buchout rounding off that second row in P4. George Dalagianis rounds off the top 5, with Parakian in P6. The number 7 ground effect car. Again, a good day in the office for them. Jingel P7, with Scott Flack in 8th for Super Venturi. Taking a look at the rest of the top 10 is Loic Moynier in P9, with David Levies in P10. Then comes Mathas Harvick in P11, with Davo Brantham in P12 for Valet eSports. Then comes Silviera in P13, with Fabrice Mistral 14th, Dmitry Zahov in 15th, and Liam Howard for Netrex in P16. Not the day he would have perhaps wanted for the Netrex cars. The rest of the top 20 are as follows: Thomas Smith in P17, Luchak in P18, Fabrice Morlato in P19, Nandor Masa in P20. Just remember, if you look to qualifying, 1.7 seconds separate at the top 20. Very close indeed, and definitely look out for this midfield. Nunez in P21 with the 36 Netrex car of Chuin in P22. Again, not the best day for Netrex at all. Sloveniak in P25 with Alex Hallows in P26. Indrex Remets in P27 with Garnier in P28 for the 94 competition car. And then Dylan Platt and Sophie Jones round off the grid in 29th and 30th respectfully. Well, we've got a large populated grid. We're going to, I believe, the formation lap in just a second. Here they are, as you say, pretty split in terms of the top 5. 2 on the mediums, Peter Vagapov and George Zalagianis. The rest on softs, Lianos, Van Vukas and Bukow on those soft compound tyres. So, yeah, certainly a bit of variation in the strategy. But the top 2 on soft, so they're going to be the ones planning to get a pretty good getaway.
Yeah, and 3 drivers near the back on hards, which is Nunez, Hember, and Dylan Platt, of course, who we saw doing the exact same thing in Malaysia. So I hope Dylan Platt can make it work this time, but down in 28th, he sort of needs to roll the dice, of course. But yeah, the front runners, that's really going to be where the focus is. And Lianos and Bukow both going for the same thing. So Vagapov could be a bit vulnerable to Bukow here, especially if he doesn't get the best launch off the line.
Yeah, definitely. And he needs to be careful because Bukow, he is racy and he certainly wants to make some progress forwards in this race. Just while we, wait for the rest of the grid because it's a large grid. So Lianos, Van Vukas and Vagapov, they're all going to be sat here for quite a while they wait for the likes of Sophie Jones and Dylan Platt to round off the grid at the back. This is going to be a crucial time. They hope they got some good temperature into those tyres because it's all going to be coming down now while we wait. But then when they line up onto the grid, we'll take that run down towards turns 1 and 2. Very fast flowing flow. You're not on the brakes for very long, if at all, on this opening lap. But it is ever important just to get your race off to a good start as early as possible. Sophie Jones takes P29, the final grid slot, as we go to the 5 red lights for round number 3, the FSR Academy Championship. 5 red lights are on. Gilanos on pole, and we are underway and racing. A fantastic start from Wesley Bukow, already trying to pull alongside in towards turn 1, but a great start from Giannis, manages to cover off, and there goes Van Vukas already off and into the barrier here at turn 1. That is his race, taking a very much premature end. Zalagianis just trying to funnel his way through. Scott Flack up into P2, Moynier into P4 with Levy's P5. A fantastic start for them. An absolutely chaotic start for our main front runners because Jingel, we've also got Luchak and Vagapov down to P15. A very poor start, even more contact as they go through
Perikian being spun out.
Perikian, started P5, I believe, now down to P22. And we've lost Van Vukas and we've pretty much lost most of our front runners out of this race already.
Yes, absolutely a catastrophic start for Costas Van Vukas. Sort of got caught out on the outside there as we see a move. That's Moynier getting past Zalagianis, who sort of did well to stay out of the chaos there, the championship leader. But now he's lost a position on his mediums. Moynier now is going to start to pull away. So Iris now, Bukow didn't make a great start, but Moynier did manage to Fred his way through the carnage and is now well in the mix.
Take a look at how it happened then. This is the race start. You can see Bukow got a really good start. Van Vukas, not so much. I think he just got caught in the mayhem a little bit. You can see Bukow, I think, or Vagapov it was, that come alongside him, just cut him off a little bit and then straight into the barrier. And that's his wheel gone. And you're not really going to be getting very far.
Yeah, Van Vukas didn't really have anywhere to go there, did he?
Yeah, not really at all. You can see.
This.
Yeah, the Team Iris car just completely drives up the inside of him, gets it done, bit of contact, and into the side of Vagapov.
Almost think Bukow got hit in the back there.
Maybe so, but it just
so him and Vagapov
like
really unlucky. And then just coming back into the carnage on the exit of turn 2. But here we go, Lianos just about holding the lead from Scott Flack in the Super Venturi at the moment. But Zalagianis looking very, very strong, still ahead of David Levy, who we didn't talk about much, but he had a really good qualifying. Come in, won both races, I believe, in AMA to get onto the grid in Academy, and is keeping up with the championship leader. So TR Motorsports have definitely picked a very, very good new driver in their lineup there.
Yeah, certainly so. And he's definitely showing to the teams in Academy that he's got what it takes. But yeah, Scott Flack really doing a great job of keeping Lianos on his toes because he didn't exactly start with the front 5. He was sort of languishing back in the midfield a little bit, but a fantastic start has given him this opportunity. And once more, Peter Vagapov involved in yet more chaos in this race into the hairpin. Thomas Smith was the one that went round and unfortunately tagged Vagapov, who now finds himself without a front wing. I think this is going to see how that transpired. Thomas Smith, P13, through the right kink. You got to brake very quickly. Did he just get tagged? No, Vagapov was the one that made the mistake.
Vagapov got on the
Thomas
grass.
Smith round, sent his rear end round, and then, of course, sliced off his front wing. So, yeah, Vagapov has just gone from bad to worse for him in this race, unfortunately. But Lianos, because Scott Flack's fallen behind Moynier as well. So another gap between first and second, 1.2 seconds. Smith as well trying to get past the slow Vagapov, who really is now just a mobile chicane up there.
Yeah, and that's really not ideal. He's going to have to go all the way across the track to get into the pit lane here. And, yeah, a very, very ignominious first couple of laps for Peter Vagapov. A big shame for him. But the other event, Silveira up in 6th, so it's not completely out of the question for Valet to get a good result in this race as we look at Zalagianis, who has gotten up to 4th now. So it definitely looks like staying out of trouble has worked for him as he continues to hold off David Levy.
Yeah, and of course, remember, on those medium tyres as well, which will certainly help him in the long run. He's taking the brunt of the tyre deficit now. Of course, they have to change compound at least once in this race. So Zalagianis getting that out the way, and around goes Thomas Smith. Yet once again, this time it wasn't aided by Peter Vagapov. And on the exit of the second Degner, probably just got a little bit squirrely on the AstroTurf.
Do you think Schmidt sustained damage from the
perhaps
Vagapov
so.
incident?
Definitely could have taken some rear end damage, which certainly would not be helping his rear end stability. Although he's already going on the attack on Hallows to the inside of the hairpin.
Oh, look how wide Alex has gone.
Had to take a massively wide line. So Smith not waiting around. Probably a bit of frustration creeping in for him as well. But yeah, Hallows just sort of gives him that one, says, okay, fair enough. And tucks in behind. But yeah, so far it's been a very chaotic race, but Moynier is sort of teetering on the edge of that 1 second. Of course, we're on to lap 3. DRS now is in effect. That drag reduction system that could help Moynier put some pressure on Lianos. We'll have to see how that one transpires.
Here we go, another replay of lap 1. So Indrek Remek, so I thought was very, very late to the grid. Here he is, just slotting in at the back. And on the outside, sort of nowhere to go. Rear, oh dear, the rear wing's gone. There it goes, flying in front of the camera. But yeah, just sort of, he came late to the party and then found himself almost tagged at the side of the back there. Is that one of the Severin Harris cars he just passed? Oh, he's just completely hit in the back.
Yeah, which is frustrating for him because certainly it's nothing of his doing. He didn't exactly make the mistake to see him out of this race, but that's racing sometimes, and that's the unfortunate nature of it that follows. Liam Howard has had a fantastic start. I think he was 16th on the grid. I did say this is not particularly where he wants to be, but I think actually it was a silver lining. It was a blessing in disguise, really, because he kept himself out of the trouble and the melee that was happening with the front 5, and it allowed him to creep up. And he is on the soft, so you'd expect him to make some progress on the likes of Silviera and Levy's and Zalagianis just in front, but certainly from 16th on the grid, not doing a bad job at all, and is extending the gap from Brantholm behind him as well. Here's Levy's closing in on Zalagianis, who certainly did not have the best of starts, but he's under pressure from the TR car, who is closing and well and truly within that DRS range. The only thing is, though, that Zalagianis has it on Scott Flack in front, and that could be his saving grace in trying to allow him to defend. But this is a pretty much 4-car train, I think, from Scott Flack down to Liam Howard. They're all inside DRS. Levy's using his push to pass and the DRS. Zalagianis going defensive to the right-hand side. Is Levy going to go all the way around the outside of turn 1? Is ahead before the corner. Still took a little bit of bravery to do that. And now he's setting his sights forward on Scott Flack as those soft tyres start to deteriorate.
Yeah. Good move by David Levy there, and Howard getting past Silviera as well. So Liam Howard 3rd in the championship. He's got Zalagianis, his main rival, right in front of him, and with Van Vukas out the picture, this could be a really big opportunity for Liam Howard.
Yeah, certainly so, and he's making some steady progress forward, picking off these medium tyres as quickly as he can while he still has some pace in those tyres. Here comes Harvick around the outside of Dunlop into the first Degner. See that? You don't see that one too often.
Oh, that required some cooperation from Wesley Buchhout there.
Yeah, takes 2 to tango. Buchhout was just like, okay, fair enough. I'll let you have that one, because Buchhout, as quick as he is, really hasn't got off to the best of starts today. We'll take a replay of it. This is Harvick. Got a really good run off of Dunlop. Was just like, okay, Buchhout slow.
Like
which way do I go? Yeah, which way do I go? I'm going to go this way to the inside of the Degner. Don't see that one often, but we certainly caught it. And we're certainly giving him a round of applause for that one. And that's him up inside the top 10. Going to try and consolidate a good points finish today, and he's trying to press on after Brantholm, who's only 0.7 of a second in front, but it's Buchhout definitely expect him to try and launch a counter-attack, getting very close indeed through 130R, putting some pressure on him towards the Casio triangle. Going to go the long way round,
late on the
extremely late with those soft compound tires that allow him to do that. Is he going to go for 2 cars in 2 opportunities, because he's got Brantham now in his sights and with the DRS?
Indeed, there's a big DRS trend behind Flack, but now Bukout gets the inside of Branholm at turn 1. I think there's nothing Branholm can really do here. Bukout through up to 9th and continuing his recovery after being spun around at the start.
Yeah, certainly so, trying to press on and press forward. He's got Dmitry Zarahov, who, again, a driver similar to Liam Howard, who didn't have the best of qualifying. He was languishing down, rounding off the top 15, sorry, and now up into P8. So really setting himself up, and that's the thing with these race starts. You can't win a race on lap 1, but you can certainly set yourself up in order to do so with that first lap, and he maximised his every opportunity. We're on board with David Levy's just behind Zalagianis. Just look at this closing speed. Zalagianis goes defensive to the right-hand side. The TR-powered car going to go around the outside. Took a bit of bravery. Yes, he was ahead, but still had to commit to it. Still had to trust that Zalagianis wasn't going to send one to the inside. And then Liam Howard also made easy pickings and got himself into the top 6. Back to live coverage, and we are on lap 6 of 32, around about halfway-ish through the stint, because these tyres are going to last around about between lap 12 and lap 18 are those soft compound tyres for this first stint. That's when we'll see the likes of Lianos Muonia and Scott Flack bar their way into the pit lane, but it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the field cope with those medium tyres. Unfortunately, we've already lost a fair chunk of the field, down to now just 24 runners. But yeah, still a very tightly contested midfield. And yeah, while Lianos is sort of running away with it at the front, from second downwards, certainly could be a good fight.
Yeah, Moynier was catching him not too long ago, so I think Moynier deciding to save the tyres and use them a bit later on as, Howard goes very, very deep at turn 1 and slots back in. Thankfully, not losing a position because he's pulled the gap to Silviera. But yeah, we're just also looking at Oliver Perikian challenging for 16th place. Now, Oliver Perikian in the ERC Endurance Championship drives for Into the Points racing team. They won their first endurance race, actually, at the Nordschleife of all places. As we look at a replay of what happened to Liam Howard. How did it happen? It says in the Halo. Well, we're about to find out. He was trying to make the move on the outside as Zalagianis. Zalagianis wasn't defending too hard, but actually he was still there on the inside. Howard gets wide on the curb, and thankfully able to rejoin there. So close battle there between the championship contenders, Zach.
Yeah, certainly so. And again, as soon as you're over that curb, as soon as you're onto that AstroTurf, you really are just a passenger. And he did well as to not spin and managed to keep it pointing the right direction. And now he's going to try and restart that surge towards the top 5. A couple of seconds off now after that slight incident, but we'll have to wait and see how that one converges. This is Lianos. He was our pole sitter. He was probably the only one inside the top 5 that managed to get away well and keep it clean for the entirety of that first lap. And he has kept it clean since. But it's very close, very contested for third place. Zalagianis, Levis, and Scott Flack all fighting for it as they go down the pitch straight. Levis certainly is within that DRS range. Is it enough in order to maximize and manufacture a move down in towards turn 1? Not quite able to go for it. I think they're locked in this DRS train, but he's chipping away. And all it takes is maybe a mistake from Scott Flack, maybe a mistake from him out of that Casio triangle. As we see Silviera, was that him going quite deep
that was
into turn 1? And Bukout,
Zarahov
going a little bit wide and allowing Bukout into P8. So again, he's making a good charge towards the front. He's got some good pace, but unfortunately, again, similar to many of his people in the top 5, he just unfortunately couldn't maximize it and is now starting to claw his way back through. He's pretty much the lead car apart from Zalagianis in order to do that, and that's probably going to be an interesting point, is those that were affected in the top 5 on that lap 1 chaos, to see them now try and claw their way back through.
Is it just me, Zach, or did Zalagianis defend a lot harder against Liam Howard than he did against David Levy? David Levy was not really fighting with him for the championship, at least at the present moment.
Very true. Yeah, very true. I mean, we're only 3 rounds in. We've only got 2 rounds of confirmed points. So, yeah, while it is a little bit earlier on, you've got to make sure you're taking every opportunity you can to gain some points, because it can always come down to at least 1 or 2 towards the end, and then you'll be looking back in hindsight and you'll be kicking yourself, wishing you defended a little bit harder. So,
but at the same time, you don't want to blow a load of... Zalagianis gets very far on the inside of the curb there as he continues to chase David Levy, but at the same time, you don't want to see someone coming through, defend over aggressively, and you're both in the wall all of a sudden.
Yeah, absolutely. That could definitely ruin a championship charge and invite someone else to take the
Very
reins at the
mature
front.
driving. He's
Yes.
picking his battles, Zalagianis.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
Liam Howard was the battle that he wanted to make sure he didn't sacrifice position for.
And he certainly, well, he played it well because he's still in this race. They're both still in this race, and he's still in contention for a podium.
Yeah, I
which
couldn't see
allowed him
Liam Howard being too upset about that one.
No, yeah.
He wasn't quite far enough along to the outside. Look at Scott Flack, the tyres, the soft tyres starting to wear as we get into lap 9 now. We heard just before the race that the soft tyres can last about 10, 11 laps at best, really, until they start to become a bit second-hand. So the mediums will start to come into their own, and we're going to see Levy and Zalagianis, I think, leading the way for a few laps.
Yeah, certainly so. And it'll be this train of medium tyres that do take the reins and go on for an extra couple laps. And then we'll see them try and resurge back to the front on those softer compound tyres towards the latter stage of this race. Around about a quarter of the way through at the moment, lap 9 of 32. And Levy's, trying to put that pressure on Scott Flack now because those medium tyres will certainly be gaining a little bit on those softs as the soft deteriorates slightly quicker than the harder medium compound tyres. Levy's still within DRS range as they go through into 130R, completely flat out in these cars, so still going to be gaining a little bit in the slipstream. Just look at how much Levy's gains under brakes into the Casto Triangle. This exit is going to be ever important, and Scott Flack's got to be careful because Zalagianis is there and in the mix. Scott Flack using his just boost of energy down the straight, try to defend, and then Levy's unable to close enough into turn 1 in order to go for that move. So still managing to stay in front, because the thing is, Scott Flack wants to end this stint on a high. He doesn't want to fall behind the medium runners and then lose a bit of time. He wants to stay in some nice clean air, at least until he has to come into the pit lane, and battling with Levy's, battling with Zalagianis is only going to slow him down and potentially maybe even tarnish a later offense onto Moynier, onto Lianos, which is quite outlandish at this point, 7.5 seconds between them, but you never know. And it also might even damage his chance for a decent shot at the podium. So if Levy's does go for the move, I can't see Scott Flack defending it too hard.
Yeah, and Scott Flack, of course, who retired really early on. I think we missed it on the broadcast in Malaysia, but he got flipped over, I believe, or he was in an instant where somebody flipped over, that's for sure. And Scott Flack retired, so I'm pretty sure it was him. But yeah, certainly so big importance for him to get a good finish here, because his season has not really had the greatest of starts, it must be said. As we look at Luxac, just spinning it in the middle of the S's and the front wing parts company. So Royal Blue, who won this race last year with Cosmo Pasquiute. As we look at there's a ground effect kind of really slow to avoid there. It's not really going so well for Royal Blue this year, is it? Matsusaka, sorry.
Yeah, no, not exactly the best way. And of course, as you say, managed to contend for the championship last season and unfortunately haven't got that way today. Levy's really isn't going for the slipstream. He's not darting to the right to try and follow Flack and stay in that slipstream. So maybe he's not too interested in going for the move. He knows these soft compound tyres are going to be slightly quicker. He's got a job, and that's to save the tyres, go long, and then pick your way through when you're much quicker towards the end. That's what he's going to be waiting for. So he knows his job. As frustrating as it is as a racing driver to have to sit behind and play second fiddle, he's doing everything right. He's not fighting. He's not losing time. He's not burning out his tyres. He's using the DRS. He's using Scott Flack's pace. And he's just sitting there waiting for him to go into the pit lane. Then he's going to give it full beans when he's got a few extra laps along with Zalagianis to try and push forward and maximize their stint, because this alternate strategy could be one to look out for. Also look out for Liam Howard. He's had some decent pace. He's only 2 seconds off this train, which again, he might be one to contend for the podium a little bit later on. Is on those soft compound tyres, so will be at a disadvantage, but yeah, I'm going to be curious to see how this strategy pans out. You can probably assume it's going to be a one-stop with how things are panning out. Of course, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, those medium tyres, they do look menacing, especially with Levy's and Zalagianis. Their pace does seem mightily quick.
They would be if they could get past Scott Flack, of course, but since they can't, that really allows Leonos and Moynier to consolidate the 7.8 second gap they've built up at the moment. And even as the tyres start to wear, they'll still be able to keep in front because they've got the soft tyre runner of Scott Flack doing their job for them, really. Not well, in terms of keeping the medium runners behind, of course. As looks like Severin Arrow's RM car going very slowly there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Oh,
So,
it's
this is
Hember.
Hember. Yeah, through turn one, probably just a little bit too early. Yeah, and
Ah.
swapped ends, unfortunately. Managed to keep it out the wall, which is a fate that Luchak couldn't boast about. But yeah, down in P21. And here's Scott Flack, a replay of him. Is this finally where he got overtaken, or did he make a bit of a mistake? Isn't under any pressure, and in towards turn one, just goes in way too deep over the AstroTurf. Very
The
deep
tyres
into
didn't have
turn
the
one.
grip there, did they?
Yeah,
Zach?
no, absolutely not. These soft tyres really are going off. Maybe pushed a bit too hard, but that allowed Zalagianis through. And now
And Dylan
he's
and David
and,
Levy, sorry.
and David Levy's both into P3 and 4 respectively. So Scott Flack might be thinking about going for an early stop here.
He might well be because the tyres starting to look second-hand, and Liam Howard is going to be all over him in a matter of moments. So yeah, certainly Super Venturi will have to change the strategy now because they can't get the soft tyres to last as long as they really wanted to. Great to see Super Venturi, by the way, stepping up to the World Championship with Liam Deval, of course, a podium finisher and the Indy 300 winner at the end, the beginning of the year in the driving lineup. So certainly looking forward to doing the highlights and commentating on that. But at the moment, Super Venturi struggling to really stay in the top 5 race.
Yeah, well, Ground Effect is still having a pretty good day with Lianis out in front. Of course, they managed to take 1 and 2 in qualifying, which, again, was certainly something to be happy about. Unfortunately, Van Vukas, we've lost him from the race. But yeah, Lianis is still running the flag high and making them proud. And, of course, after boasting a podium lockout last time out in Malaysia, Ground Effect really are the team to beat, it seems, this season.
Oh,
we see Liam Howard, the first of those soft runners into the pit lane, and he's onto the medium. So could this be a 2-stop? Is he going for a shorter medium stint and then back onto the softs a little bit later on? Wesley Bukout as well onto the mediums. We're getting told it might, in fact, actually be able to go for the 1-stop. So they might be able to take these medium tyres. But a very early stop from Liam Howard and Bukout. And they have just about managed to keep it in clearish air. So they might be able to take these tyres and go for a bit of an undercut.
I wonder if this is a response to Howard being not ran out of road, but sort of not losing time because Zalagianis sort of successfully defended against him. So he sort of decided, right, I need to get on the mediums now and sort of gain ground so that when Zalagianis stops, I'm ahead of him, is sort of the thought process there, perhaps. But it certainly makes sense that Bukout doing that after having such a difficult start to the race, trying to hit early and gain some ground. But can they make the tyres last? It's going to be quite a job, that's for sure.
Yeah, certainly so. But just we talk about how well Lianis is doing. Moynier has kept him pretty honest. That gap is sort of stagnated around 2-ish seconds, has sort of fluctuated into the 1.9s up to the 2.5s. And Moynier is into the pit lane. So going for that undercut, how much can he gain? Can he get the track position ahead of Lianis? It's going to be a tough ask. Maybe Lianis is going to play the safe game. Here comes Levy's on the back of Zalagianis, who was able to find a way through. But again, you could just see there braking a little bit earlier, lifting off just a touch as to not go for that move because they know what their job is. They know what they have to do. Moynier wants to get out just in front of Zarahov just to have that extra security of clean air, able to push on this outlap. And you can see Lianis now trying to push just a little bit, using that push to pass, using that extra bit of energy in order to maximize this in-lap, which you can safely assume probably will be as to respond from the strategy call. He needs to get these tyres warmed up, those does Moynier, and try and push forward, try and close the gap. That was to Lianis. If he can get himself inside the DRS, that's certainly 1 foot in the door. And as we see Bukout versus Parakian for P11 and 12. Bukout has made the stop, and traffic like this is certainly not something he wants to get bogged down in.
I'll tell you who has got a nice big gap on their fresh tyres, Liam Howard. He's got like a 4 seconds to Morilato. But Parakian really holding up Bukout here. So Bukout needs to get past him sharpish. And maybe they might be able to get a good run through into the hairpin here. Down the inside. Does Parakian defend this? No, he thinks slightly better of that. Through goes the iris of Wesley Bukout up into 11th.
Yeah, nice move indeed. Got a bit of a gap to Scott Flack in front, but he's done the right thing and he's pushing forward. And yeah, Parakian just making sure he doesn't fight that one too hard as to not lose time. Here comes Lianis into the pit lane, so all eyes on Moynier and where he is relative. I think he's now coming through the Casio triangle, so Lianis needs to make this a quick pit stop. Levy's and Zalagianis then inherit the race lead 1 and 2. But yeah, here comes Mounier on the exit of the pit lane. There's Lianos now exiting. The gap certainly has come down. Don't forget that Lianos is going to have to warm up his tires. Here comes Mounier trying to go around the outside, putting some pressure on. You can see a bit of a twitch. He's certainly there. He's in the mix, and they've got the traffic of Brantham just in front of him as well. This race is well and truly on. Of course, Mounier is going to have that lap older tire, but this track position, this gain of time, as they're now stuck behind Brantham, this certainly could get very spicy very quickly, because Lianos goes for a move on Brantham. Mounier could then capitalize off it to the inside of the Degners, maybe not quite. But yeah, Brantham will definitely play a factor in this, and Mounier still has an opportunity.
Going off really wide on the exit of these corners. Those mediums are starting to wear too now. And Mounier, just has to back out to the outside at the last minute there. And Mounier avoiding two little collisions. He did that again at turn 1 as well. So the lead undercut nearly worked out for him. He didn't quite get track position, at least not yet. With the DRS, he might have a go down the main straight.
Yeah, certainly so. Out of spin curve, he needs to make quick work of Brantham and get that car between himself and Mounier, using that push to pass, using that extra energy to the outside. Brantham is defending in towards 130R. This might be a difficult affair for Lianos to go all the way around the outside. Does so indeed. This is going to put Mounier in the back foot, who's going to quickly follow him through to the outside of the Casio triangle. He needs to stay with him. He needs that DRS, that drag reduction system, in order to keep him in the mix. Bit of a slap on the exit, so certainly pushing quite hard. And has he got the DRS? Indeed he has. Lianos doesn't. This is going to allow Mounier in the Team Iris car to close that gap. Is it enough though? Because with limited DRS opportunities and limited overtaking opportunities, he needs to stay with him in the corners. And he needs to put that pressure on. Play the mental game. Fill his mirrors. Send a move that you're not really hoping for. Just make sure Lianos knows that you're there. But with the gap between them now only 5/10, a gap that was stagnating around 2.5 seconds in the first stint, has certainly turned into a good fight for the race lead. But just look at Lianos' confidence through that first sector, able to pull a good couple of tenths, good couple of car lengths on Mounier, and that's going to be his advantage in order to try and keep him at that 1 second range.
Yeah, indeed. So I think the opportunity might have passed there for Loic Mounier. Very experienced, very fast driver. We haven't seen too much of him at the front this season, but certainly that carnage at the start gave him the opportunity. But Lianos, of course, qualified on pole, has been able to react to what Mounier has thrown at him so far. Going back to Zalagianis and Levy, I believe Zalagianis has got a DRS pass on Levy, or might have been just going into 130R that he got through. Levy has slowly been dropping back, so I think TR might be settling for a podium here if they can't clear Zalagianis. But it really depends how things go for Mounier and Lianos, if they can catch back up quickly, or whether they get stuck behind Silviera in a moment, because Lianos is catching him quite quickly too. But yeah, certainly very interesting so far. And Howard is caught up to Morlato in the battle for 8th. So Howard on his fresh tyres, continuing to cut through the valets and all the cars yet to stop.
Yeah, certainly so. And yeah, interesting that you note that about Silviera. Here comes Arahov into the pit lane, a driver that's been doing very well considering where he started in this race. Missed his pit box though, had to dump it into reverse. That's going to cost him
and Zaharov going for the hards.
And he's onto the hards. We saw a couple of drivers start the race on this tyre. Weren't expecting anyone to go onto it mid-race though. Zarahov's definitely biting the bullet. Maybe not confident in his tyre wear because he did start with the mediums and he's not confident that he can take those softs to the end. So having to go for the hard compound tyres, could it be sort of a foreshadowing of future events and maybe amongst the front runners? We'll have to wait and see. Here's Liam Howard on the back of Morlato, about half a second between them as he tries to cut his way through and make some more progress inside the top 10. Morlato going quite deep through the hairpin. That's going to give him a poor run, allow Howard to close a bit of a gap. And here he comes, certainly very close indeed. Morlato going defensive in towards Spoon Curve. Here comes Howard though. He's going to have to go to the outside. Morlato covers it off. Lianos trying to catch up to the back of Silviera, does get through with quick work, just looking to the timing tower on our left-hand side, does get through, so Mounier unable to catch up. Morlato once again defensive. Here comes Howard to the outside of 130R. We've seen it done before, uses his push to pass just to clear him, make sure he's ahead, make sure it's easy pickings out in front. Zalagianis though, this latter stage of his first stint, able to pull 2.3 seconds over Levy's. Both of them were sort of working together, and now Zalagianis certainly coming to hammer time, and he's pushing very hard to round off this stint.
Yeah, so Ground Effect really have got a car running first and third, really. It's only Levy that's sort of the fly in the ointment. So they can really control the race because they've got a driver leading on each strategy, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So they've got their bases covered in both respects, with Lianos going for the traditional strategy, the conventional soft to medium, and then of course Zalagianis with that medium to soft. So, you know, they've definitely got two very good, very front running drivers on both strategies, because whichever one's quickest, they're always going to have someone there to capitalize and take those points. But yeah, Zalagianis with some fantastic pace. And it is a shame that Mounier hasn't really been able to keep with Lianos, because I was really looking forward to a bit of a race there with them. Unfortunately, he couldn't gain an extra couple attempts on that outlap and get the track position to make it life a little bit harder for Lianos. But who knows? Maybe they'll catch up onto the back of Levy's, and Levy's might be able to put up a bit more of a fight. But based off his track record with backing off when fighting Zalagianis, I don't exactly count on him holding these two up, but maybe he will, because perhaps he might have to fight them a little bit later on if he can hold him up a little bit at this stage. We never know. But yeah, Lianos and Mounier trying to cut their way back through and extend their lead back at the front. Bit of a twitch though from Lianos. That might
Lianos
be,
is pushing, that's for sure.
Yeah, just a little bit, and Zalagianis is into the pit lane, so this is certainly where these medium tires are going off. Still a long way to go though in this race-ish, about what, 13-ish laps?
And he's putting softs on.
Yeah, so he's confident these softs can go to the end.
This is a two-stop, that's for sure.
I think he's confident he can get to the end on these. 13 laps should be pretty easy. Unfortunately, though, he's going to have to come out and get past Scott Flack in order to use these soft tires.
This is the beginning all over again. Flack has got back in front.
Indeed. But Zalagianis has got the advantage of those soft compound tires and will be able to sort of find his way through.
And Lianos is right behind David Levy, by the way. So he's right for the lead. So
certainly is.
Great to see TR Motorsports leading in Academy, of course. But here we go. Lianos cuts the inside the hairpin. Oh, there we go. It was lucky Levy didn't turn in on him there. He's still just side by side and will have to back out. And indeed he does so. So David Levy, I think, will be heading to the pit soon. He's probably going to come out right behind Zalagianis.
Yeah, probably so. But yeah, Levy's, he put up more of a fight for that than I thought he would. This is Zalagianis squeezing his way past Scott Flack on this run towards Spoon Curve. Just about managed to do it. Scott Flack didn't give him much room, if any. But Zalagianis made it work, and now he's got a couple of seconds to Liam Howard, who now finds himself in at P5. I think we're going to take a look at how this one came about. You can see Zalagianis, good exit off the second Degner. Scott Flack going defensive into the hairpin. So Zalagianis says, okay, you can do that. I'm going to go this way around, all the way around the outside. Got the drive off the corner, accelerated, and through he went. He had a little bit more space from this angle, I think. So we can hold our breath a little bit less on this one. Here comes Levy's into the pit lane. Will certainly come out behind Zalagianis, but onto the softs, and he's going to be trying to push through and again take a similar route to Zalagianis, in that he's got to get past Scott Flack, and he's got to then try and chase after Liam Howard with only, 13 laps left of this race to go.
Yeah, and Howard, of course, jumped up because of that early stop now, so he's going to be vulnerable to Zalagianis. We're going to see reverse of what we saw earlier on. The battle between the two is Morlato trying to go around the outside of Azarov on his hard tyres, but not quite able to do so.
Yeah, outside of turn 1 and 2 is always going to be hard. This is Zalagianis already onto the back of Liam Howard. He's really making light work of these guys on these soft compound tyres, really getting some good pace early on, and hopefully it won't drop off too drastically. You can just see the closing speed he has under brakes. Is he going to pick off another one? Look at the exit he gets off that hairpin, because the amount of horsepower in these cars, all to the rear wheels, this fresh rubber really going to help him, squeezing him through. Zalagianis finds the space. He's got to go the outside of Spoon Curve, but the grip and the confidence on these tyres promote him up into 4th place. And now it's 5 seconds to Brantham on slower tyres in those medium tyres, and Zalagianis certainly going to want to get himself on to that podium. Levy's, though, really languishing back. He's lost, what is that, a good 6 seconds to Zalagianis in that pit stop phase. So yeah, Zalagianis is going to be one to perhaps make it work, but Levy's, yeah, really languishing backwards.
Yeah, doing that extra lap, you could tell he was losing so much time. But Liam Howard, it felt like a little bit of repaying the favour for what happened earlier on when he tried to get past him. The DRS, he closes in again, but surely in those old tyres, he's not really going to be able to make inroads.
Yeah, he's just fighting a losing battle, I think, is the story to that one. This is Morlato again trying to have another go at Dmitry Zarahov down the pit straight. Zarahov giving him a good fight despite being on the hard compound tyres, but Morlato, DRS and push to pass, sails around the outside, or even maybe not, because Dmitry Zarahov does keep his nose on the inside. But Morlato, soft compound tyres, it's not really much of a competition at all. And up into P11, bit of a gap back to Harvick, or up to Harvick, I should say, for the top 10, but certainly going to try and consolidate this P11. Considering, to be fair, he did start quite a way down in the midfield, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, he certainly has a good gap. This is Jingo to the inside of Mas. Jingo was on the podium last time out at Malaysia. Bit of contact as he tries to get through on those hard compound tyres of Mas. He's got to go around the outside of the S's, claims the racing line, and up into 15th place. But yeah, for Jingo, is a shame because of the pace that he showed at Malaysia, but still a good day in the office overall for Ground Effect.
Yeah, certainly, and I'm sure Single will learn from this and come back stronger. But yeah, certainly feel I always feel like a sharp intake of breath is required whenever I see someone trying to go around the outside at turn 1, even if they've got way fresher tyres, because there's only so much space to go around. As Vagapov, still in the race, has a go at Mass as well. Oh, locks up down the inside into the hairpin. A very aggressive move there from the valet driver. And Vagapov, whose race has not really gone to plan. Still in it though, and doing his best to get something out of it. You still get points if you finish in the top 15, let's not forget, as there's Brandholm, the last car to pit really in this phase of the race. 10 laps to go, puts on some medium tyres, so Brandholm should be good to the end then.
Yeah, very easily so. And yeah, well, that's made light work for Zalagianis. He can now set his sights perhaps forward to Moynier. Well, the gap is about 9.2 seconds in 10 laps. He needs to average about a second a lap if he wants to make that one work. And he certainly is doing that, making some quick inroads. Is it enough, though? And are those tyres going to be able to hold up for the entire stint? We'll have to wait and see. But if anyone can do it, certainly Zalagianis has proved he's been able to. But Levy's on the back of Scott Flack, so despite not having the best of pace on those medium tyres towards the latter stage of that stint, he certainly is making inroads and could be one to look out for a top 5. Liam Howard only about 1.3 up the road as well. So yeah, Levy's, he could be up there for the top 4.
He could well be, but of course Wesley Bukow is very quick behind him, and he's on the mediums, which are going to last a bit longer into the race. He can push a bit harder on those mediums without the temperature going out of control and the tyres starting to just become jelly, basically.
Yeah, that's not because pushing those soft compound tyres, they're very soft rubber. The point of them is that they're softer rubber. They're easier to warm up, and then you can sort of...
Yeah, but it's a very small window, isn't it?
Exactly. It's very fine margins. Too cold, and they don't change shape enough. Too hot, they change shape too much, and that's when then you get the sliding, and then, of course, the more they slide, the more they grain, and it's just that negative feedback loop of you slide, they grain, they slide, etc., etc. Here comes Levy's, though, going to go around the outside, find a gap, squeeze through, a bit of contact. Scott Flack says, no, you don't. Gives him just enough room in order to go 2 abreast there, but Scott Flack keeping him at bay. Levy's, yeah, really didn't have much space into turn 1. Had to sort of squeeze that car through, but unfortunately on this occasion didn't have the overwhelming run in order to get that move done into turn 1. But through Dunlop, we've seen moves done in towards the first and second Degner. Levy's, though, unfortunately, is not quite close enough, and that's going to stagnate his progress. The thing with the softs, though, is you've got to get through quickly because time isn't on your side at all. He's got a limited amount of opportunities, limited window for these tyres to work, and the longer he stays behind Scott Flack, the less time he's got to get after Liam Howard, and here he goes, trying to eye up another move.
Yeah, because Zalagianis, he's pulled the gap on Howard, but he's not really closing on Moynier and Lianos now. As we look at Levy trying to... Oh, up the inside into Spoon. Oh, how on earth did he get that stopped in time? Scott Flack had to get well out of the way there.
That was, yeah, wow, fair play. Saw a gap, went for it. Very aggressive, but very fair indeed. And yeah, here's Scott Flack on board with Scott. Let's take the rear view. But he is close. He is gaining because this is all flat out using that slipstream. Has to go to the inside very late. Just sends one to the inside. Scott Flack just doesn't see him coming. Stays on the track, but... Yeah,
I think he did see him coming because he had to get really wide out of the way.
He saw him coming, just was a bit shocked that he was going to go for that move, and now Bukow's going to eye up a move because Scott Flack's a little bit phased by that. Bukow just with DRS, Flack with the push to pass, and that sort of inhibited his progress into turn 1. But yeah, Levy's fantastic move, aggressive, but very fair indeed. Just picked his moment, and now he can set his sights forward. Less than a second to Liam Howard. I doubt he's going to catch Zalagianis or any of the top 2 unless something drastic happens, but yeah, he can certainly try and consolidate a top 4 as the laps dwindle down.
And a little shout here. What a recovery drive by Wesley Bukow after being him and Peter Vagabond spinning out at turn 1. I think Woodcock was like nearly 20th at one point, and he's fighting for a position in the top 6. That's very impressive.
Yeah, indeed, and that goes to show his his ability to compose himself, get back on his feet as quickly as possible. As we see Levy's trying to manufacture a move in a similar fashion he did to Scott Flack just a lap ago. Is he going to go for a similar move into Spoon? He's a little bit further back, but unfortunately unable to go for the move on this occasion. But yeah, Bukout really showing good patience, good racecraft, just able to recompose himself very quickly. Doesn't let the turn 1 chaos fluster him, and just didn't get to him. Just brushed it off, said, okay, push on. I've still got 32 laps. Race isn't done yet. Race isn't done until I get to the checkered flag. And now he certainly is a threat for the top 6 because he's pushing Scott Flack through into 130 out. But he's got to look out because Silviera is also there and in the mix. Yeah, Bukout, fantastic drive.
Yeah, and Silviera on the fresher soft tyres though. So Bukout has really he's kind of stuck in the middle because he can't get past Flack. But he is really vulnerable to Silviera himself. So expect Silviera to be making a few moves in these final couple of laps. But it really feels like so far this season, all the Grand Effect drivers have taken their turn at winning a race. I wonder if it will be Single or Mars's turn next time out. And they'll just keep. They're going to run out of drivers to win races now. So Grand Effect, they'll have to let either someone else have a second win or a different team. As Perky goes all the way around the outside of Harvig and runs out of road completely there. So that was he wasn't quite close enough early enough to really pull that one off.
No, not quite. It was a bit of a send, bit outlandish. Here comes Levis to the inside of Howard. That one's going to be a much easier affair. Liam Howard going to try and stick his nose in on the run towards Spoon. Nearly got his front wing chopped off by the rear diffuser of Levis, but quick work, light work for Levis, who gets himself into the top 4 that we've been talking about.
But now he's 10 seconds behind Zalagianis.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Really shows.
He's lost a lot of time, and Zalagianis has done a fantastic job of staying in front. Here's Silviera on the back of Bukout. Is he going to go for the move into 130 out? Bukout looking forward, backwards as opposed to forward. Bit of contact between the two. Silviera is going to have to go the long way around. Bukout's going to have to tuck back in. So yeah, Silviera's done a fantastic job equally compared to Bukout as well. But yeah, I mean, we say that about Zalagianis. He's made inroads on Moynier, big inroads, because Moynier's lost to Zalagianis and lost to Lianos as well. So maybe there might be a chance for Zalagianis. Here comes Silviera, going to go for Scott Flack. 2 in 2 maybe to the inside of turn 1 and 2. Scott Flack says, okay, fair enough. Got the inside line because the outside has proven not to work. And of course, we saw last time a bit of chaos. Last season, a bit of chaos with turn 1 and 2. Damien Scowen and Cosmo Prosciutto actually came together, I think, not once but twice at turn 1 and 2. So yeah.
Indeed, and you'll get to comment on Cosmo Pasquito in the pro race in just a moment once this is done, Zach. But yeah, Wesley Bukout has now got the task of getting past Scott Flacky, and as Silviera is no doubt going to challenge Liam Howard in a moment. So Howard really struggling to hold on to the top 5, and it's been an okay race by Howard. He's had his moments here and there, but really he's lost a bit of ground to Zalagianis, and it really that bad qualifying, even though there was carnage at the first corner, was the qualifying that really set him back as usual. In Malaysia as well. So, but definitely Moynier, as you say, losing a few seconds to Zalagianis and could be vulnerable if he's used up too much of his tyres fighting after the first pit stops with Lianos early in the race.
Yeah, certainly so. It's those small moments early on that can really cost you later. And we're seeing the tail end of that now. Here's Silviera on the back of Liam Howard. He's really made a resurgence of pace on those soft compound tyres, just cutting through them. In fact, going to eye up a move for the top 5 now. Maybe might be able to go for Levies if he got the pace, because he's certainly showing it. Push to pass and DRS down this pit straight will make light work of Liam Howard to the right-hand side of turn 1 and 2. Now he can set his sights forward. But fantastic drive. The alternate strategy. 3rd, 4th and 5th in this race. Of course, Lianos and Moynier have sort of been unmatched, but even then, Zalagianis is only a few seconds off Moynier. So perhaps if Zalagianis didn't get involved as much as he did in that turn 1, turn 2 kerfuffle, he might actually have been a threat for the top 2, maybe even for the race lead. But, you know, ifs, coulds, buts, maybe.
Well, it was him and Levy being stuck behind Scott Flack, really.
Exactly.
That allowed
so
him to pull away.
Those small things that we can see in hindsight, if, coulds, mutts, babies, whatever, it's all skeptical, but we never know. But either way, third place still, Zalagianis will not be
Well,
complaining
especially
about
with
that at
Van
all.
Vukas out the picture. He'll
Yeah,
definitely
exactly,
take that.
exactly. In terms of the championship, you know, he's taken some decent points over his rivals and scoring some decent points himself. So, yeah, overall, a really good day for Zalagianis, for Ground Effect as a whole. But yeah, this alternate strategy, it's been pretty equal between the two. So either have worked, but towards this latter stage of the race, it's really given us some good action, especially if Silviera can make some progress on Levy.
Yeah, there we go. Last lap for Levy, 1:31.2. Silviera, 1:30.9. So yeah, he's definitely closing. That was like 3 temps faster at least. So nearly 4 temps actually. So I definitely think Navale is going to have a go in the last 3 laps or so. But whether he's going to get through is another matter, as out being passed by Brandholm here. Yeah, falling further and further back. So Bukout, yeah, he has had a good recovery drive, but he's not really been able to hold off against the guys who pit late on for softer tyres.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't matter how quick you are. If you haven't got the tyres underneath you, you're not exactly going to make much pressure, and there's nothing you can really do about it. If you know, it doesn't matter if you're Max Verstappen. If the car isn't quick enough, you're not going to be able to make that to do magic with it. So unfortunately, Bukout, as good as his drive has been, it might just have to end here. Here we go, side by side with Massa on Parakian, I think. Goes around the outside, settles in, and up into P13. The midfield certainly has been tightly contested. It has been very close. And we've seen some good action. It's a shame that Lianos, well, we can't discredit him for it. We can certainly be annoyed at him for running off with it, though, because it's deprived us of a fight for the race lead. But hats off to him. He hasn't put a foot wrong at all. Kept out of the melee of turn 1 and 2 on lap 1. And since then, just hasn't looked back. Man, it really has been a faultless race. Pretty much just no pressure. Even when Moynier managed to catch up in the pit stop phase, just said, okay, that's fine. I'm going to keep my cool. I'm going to push forward and do my job, because he knows he's got some pace. This is Brantham on the back of Bukout in towards 130R. Goes to the outside, in fact, squeezes his way through. Manages to get the racing line, so it worked off for him in the long run. But yeah, that certainly was a very, very close way to get that move done. Lap 29 of 32, this race is drawing to a close. Zalagianis is gaining on Moynier. Is it enough in order to put some pressure on? Here comes Brantham on Scott Flack, who another driver who has been going backwards. These soft tyres in this latter stage really, really working well for a lot of these drivers. Lighter fuel tanks and the fresher tyres is just a perfect combination. They're pretty much pumping out qualifying laps at this rate. And you might even eye up Liam Howard. Unfortunately, Silviera has stopped his progress on Levy, and P5 might be the end of the road for him. But Brantham, yeah, another driver who sort of languished around about 10th, 11th in qualifying, really made some steady progress forward. So this alternate strategy has been working for a lot of people.
Yeah, indeed, Zach. And Zalagianis is now about just under 3 seconds behind Moynier. So he's really getting into, if he can get to DRS range, we could see a little bit of a battle for second on the final lap. I think Moynier might have just enough life in the mediums to keep Zalagianis at bay, but I can't say that with any certainty, really. But yeah, Liam Howard has certainly got a tough job here. Is that Oliver Perikian, who's had his adventures today? And certainly putting on a great show in Malaysia, doing lots and loads of overtakes, but certainly not having the rub of the green yet. I just lost it in the middle of, that looks like the second or third.
He's not even hit the wall yet, just accelerates and bang. Oh, that was such an underwhelming hit as well, and unfortunately lost his
very anticlimactic.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be some spectacle of...
And Silviera has got past Howard.
Indeed. Well, he did that quite a while ago.
That's true, yes. Sorry,
yes,
it's the other valet that stuck behind.
It's Brantham that's now trying to get past Liam Howard, and can he do it in towards turn 1? Push to pass and DRS. Liam Howard using everything he's got left to defend. Goes to the inside of turn 1, trying to cover him off, but Brantham all the way around the outside. Beautiful move from the valet on those fresher tyres, and there was nothing that Liam Howard could say to that one. It's now 2 valets inside the top 6. A great day for them in terms of points. Silviera and Brantham both making this alternate strategy work for them. It takes a lot of patience and it takes a lot of skill in order to make that one work, because as I said earlier on, it's so frustrating. You want to get involved in the battles earlier on. You want to use your pace, but you need to think, I've got a job to do. It's all going to come to me towards the late stage of this race, with those final 5 laps to go, where these tyres are really going to come into their own. You've just got to wait. You've got to be patient, and then your moment will come. And it's really paid off for him, because Silviera and Brantham have both cut their way through. And also look at Zalagianis. He is teetering, flirting on the edge of 1 second to Moynier. This could definitely get spicy.
Yeah, but you have to say credit to Liam Howard, because he was on the same strategy as Flack and Bukout, and he's basically leading that little race between all the guys who have pit early on for mediums, basically. And so I definitely feel like Liam Howard, even though, you know, he's lost positions to those on the softer tyres, he's still done, for the people that were on that strategy, he's done the best. So I wouldn't say it was a completely wasted afternoon for Liam Howard, and he's had some good battles here and there. But I think he just couldn't get enough progress in the first stint to really get a comfortable position to maintain, like we've seen Lianos and Mounier do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all eyes on this man then, with a lap and a half left to go, as well as Mounier. Both of these two have done fantastically.
There he is in the background.
And yeah, you can see Zalagianis in the background. Just, you know, he's there. He's posing a bit of a threat. Mounier might be having to look backwards, but a lap and a half left of this race to go, and Lianos just hasn't looked backwards since the start of the race, and it's been a fantastic job from him. Zalagianis is within 1 second, but I'm afraid time isn't his friend at this time. He needs to maximize any opportunity he can, but now he's got the hook on the back of Mounier's car. He's reeling him in, and he's going to have that DRS at least for the final lap. He might be able to manufacture an opportunity, but we'll have to wait and see. But he's going to be giving us absolute everything. He's got a sniff of second place here. He's certainly going to want to try and get after it.
Yeah, and Zalagianis has done incredibly well to keep these softs alive as long as he has, and to put Mounier under pressure. And just a word on Lianos, because I always feel like he's probably one of the more underrated of the Grand Effect drivers. It feels like we're always talking about Zalagianis or Van Vukas in most of these races. Lianos has been quietly impressive in previous rounds as well. Like I said, in Malaysia, he was the only one to really make the hard tyres work to his advantage. Not many people could do. So, yeah, certainly there could be more to come. Lianos could become a real title threat, as Zalagianis now a threat to Mounier on the outside into turn one.
Oh, he's going to go for it. He's got the long way round. Mounier says no, covers him off. Tried it, and that's the move we've been waiting for the last stint between Zalagianis and Mounier. It was always going to be a question of whether he could catch him. And yeah, he was not going to do that. He's got 1 lap left to go. He's counting down the corners in order to try and bring it home for second place. He's done fantastically, but Zalagianis is going to be driving with fire in his heart, trying to go for the move, not quite into the first of the 2 Degners. And of course, we've got to keep our eye on when Lianos crosses the line. But Zalagianis on the back of Mounier, not quite going to be close enough for the hairpin on these soft compound tyres. Definitely going to be crying out for help as he goes through the left. Needs to set up a good exit here in order to go for the move, perhaps into Spoon Curve. He's got maybe any little bit of push to pass he's got left he needs to use. He's relying so much on that slipstream. Just try and close the gap as much as he can. He'll have a different, another burst of DRS down in towards 130. That's going to be his final opportunity, perhaps, and he is very, very close indeed. We've seen moves down in towards 130. Zalagianis has driven absolutely brilliantly for this final stint. Mounier goes defensive. Zalagianis forced the long way around, using a little bit of push to pass. He's going to go for the move around the outside, a little bit off the circuit, but he gets the move done. Mounier is going to try and dummy one back to the inside. All eyes on Lianos, though, as he comes through the Casio Triangle and across the line. He's led from start to finish. Round number 3, the Japanese Grand Prix goes to Lianos, and it's a 1-2 for Ground Effect after a day that went pretty sour at the start. Zalagianis second, with the Team RS Mounier in P3. Levy, another driver that has made that alternate strategy work for him in P4. And then comes Brantham and Silviera, both of those two.
Silviera
also
dropped behind Brantham there.
He did indeed. In fact, Brantham managed to get himself inside the top 5 and Silviera 6th. But again, another good day for Valle overall. And it certainly has been a really good race. We certainly said at the start that strategy would play a factor. I didn't think it would play as big of a factor as that one, though.
Yeah, certainly that incident on the first lap for pretty much half the field really shook things up, and then from then on it was a case of we had basically 2 separate races that converged right in the final 10 laps or so, with all the medium runners very, very vulnerable and soft runners chewing through them, some more quickly than others, as we see the finishes at the tail end of the field just crossing the line together. Harving and Vagabov in 11th, 12th, 13th there, I think. But yeah, certainly some good little action there, and the strategy kept things alive right till the end. Zalagianis just pipping Mounier, being a very, very tense moment on the final lap there.
Yeah, his heart definitely would have been in his mouth, and gutting for Mounier, who tried to go to the inside of the Casio Triangle, couldn't quite make that one work. But yeah, Zalagianis, great move around the outside.
Yeah, full credit to him. I think he just about kept 2 wheels on track.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Get to keep the position.
It's a brave move to make. It is a very, very brave move to make. Well, here is the top 10. Lianos for Ground Effect and Zalagianis for Ground Effect also 1 and 2. With like Mounier in P3. Then comes David Levy's in P4. P4, with Davo Brampton for Vale P5. Silviera also for Vale in 6th, Liam Howard P7, Scott Flack in 8th, Wesley Bukow in P9, with Fabrice Morlato rounding off the top 10. From 11th down, Dmitry Zarhov in P11, Harvig in 12th. Peter Vagapov, after a really poor start, tried to recover, only managed P13 in the end. Nandor Masa in P14, Rajingal in 15th. Then comes Mass for the 63, TR powered by Geeks Energy 16th. Sophie Jones managed to make some good progress, up 13 places to P17. Mistral in 18th. Oliver Perikian unfortunately having a big crash towards the end, only managing 19th. And then Snap Vangers rounding off the top 20. Dylan Hember, the last of our finishers in 21st, and those that didn't make it to the checkered flag: Indrek Remitz, Thomas Smith, Luchak, Hallows, Platt, Nunez, Sloveniak, and Kostas Van Vukas, one of our front runners that we lost on that lap 1 melee, which unfortunately cost him a chance, after taking a very good result in Malaysia. But it's a 1-2-3 for round 2 in Malaysia, and a 1-2 for round 3 here in Japan for Ground Effect. They've done fantastically, and they certainly are the team to aspire to.
Indeed, and do you want to take us quickly through the driver standings, Zach?
Certainly so. So after 3 rounds, Zalagianis, a pretty dominant run of form out at front, 80 points to his teammates 57. Then comes Liam Howard, consistency paying off for him there with 51. Kostas Van Vukas, despite the DNF, stays 4th in the standings with Harvig P5, Mounier P6 with a podium today, going to help him in order to claw some points towards the top 5. Peter Vagapov with 2 8-points runs in a row, P7, with Wesley Bukow in P8. Then comes Silviera and Scott Flack P9 and 10 in the standings. It is pretty close if you count Zalagianis out, because that consistent 30, 25, 25, he is the man to beat. You said he was underrated. People are certainly going to be rating him now.
Well, it's Lianos, who is certainly a little bit underrated. And after that performance, pole position, staying out of trouble. The only thing that might get him in trouble is that instant beginning between him, Van Vukas, and Vagapov. The question is whether Vagapov and Lianos gave Van Vukas enough room. I think Van Vukas might feel more aggrieved at Vagapov than his teammate personally, but certainly it's a big blow to Van Vukas', with only 10 rounds, it's a big blow to Van Vukas' title hopes, but he'll be able to recover from that, certainly, if he has the pace that we saw in Malaysia.
Yeah, certainly so. Well, that's the Academy action done and dusted. Join us for round 4 on the 17th of April in a couple of weeks' time. But for FSR, that's not the action done at all. We've still got the Pro and the World Championships yet to come up in a few moments' time. I'll be on the Pro, and then you'll have the pleasure of Lewis McGlade and Ewan O'Leary for the World Championship. Edward, it's been a pleasure to have you alongside me today, our first time working together. And I certainly cannot wait to see if we can work together in the future. Well,
absolutely.
Gents, yeah, certainly so.
Is there time just before we end for a driver of the race from you very quickly, Zach? I'll do one too.
I have to say, I think it has to be one of the Ground Effect boys, isn't it? It's got to be either Lianos or Zalagianis, because they both drove fantastically. So for me, it's one of those two.
Fair enough. I think shout out to David Levy. I think TR Motorsports really needed get their season underway, and rare that you see them in the top 4, so great to see David Levy, even though he wasn't quite able to live with the pace of Zalagianis. I think that was a really solid performance, and great to see Loic Mounier, even though he lost out on second right at the end, was a much better performance from him. So let's hope we see those patterns continue as the season goes on.
Yeah, well, for the final time in this stream, a thank you to our broadcast partners of VCO, as well as our returning sponsors of Mesita Esports, SimLab, and 3D Wraps, again, for supporting FSR and certainly aiding us today. And of course, we welcome VCO this season as broadcast partners, but the action stops here for Academy. As I said, join us for the Pro and World Championships in just a moment. For myself and Edward, with Cameron Roger on cams, we certainly have appreciated you joining us for today. We hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.